This is Business Incorporated with me, Bosin Amafai. On the show today, Nigeria's inflation rises slightly to 11.28% in September as Kenya's biggest mobile phone operator, Safaricom, loses 1.6% subscribers to rival network Airtel. Plus, South African food chain owner, Famous Brands, sees $60 million impairment. Let's start with Nigeria, where the headline inflation has risen for the second time in a row with a margin of 0.05% to 11.28% last September compared to 11.23% in the month of August. The latest data released by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the composite food index rose to 13.31% year-on-year in September, driven by increases in prices of poultry products, vegetables, and other important food items. Similarly, the country's urban inflation rate increased to 11.70% year-on-year, while the rural inflation increased to 10.2% last month. On a month-on-month basis, the headline inflation declined by 0.21% to 0.84% in September. The food sub-index fell by 0.42% points to 1%, while the urban index and rural inflation fell by 0.14% to 1% and 0.82%. If we go straight to the market now, and here in Nigeria, the stock exchange main index is swinging towards positive territory intraday in South Africa. However, the GSE index was down 0.72%, while the Egyptian 30 is over 1% higher at midday Nigerian time. Kenya closed 1.72% as negative on Monday. And then to the Middle East, the numbers are largely positive this Tuesday, with the Dubai, Qatar, and Saudi indices all looking up intraday. Abu Dhabi is the only market looking slightly negative with 0.04%. The Dubai market is 0.5% in the green, and the Qatar market a strong 2.01%. Saudi Arabia is still sidestepping the diplomatic row over the missing journalist Khashoggi. That market is 0.27% positive for the second trading day. Now, the European stock markets opened mixed early this Tuesday as escalating tensions between Saudi Arabia and the West worsens geopolitical concerns and limits gains across the European markets. Let's talk to Ulrich Batz at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange for more headlines rocking the European markets today. Ulrich, it's good to see you. Let's start with the big story about Italy and the budget. Now, what is the meat of this story of the budget presented to the EU Commission? Highly controversial, yes, but what risk do people in the market make out of this Italian job?
Yeah, the risk is that with expanding the debt and, of course, also increasing the debt load to very high numbers, Italy is already the highest indebted country in the Eurozone, except for Greece, which is a small country, but the proportion is even bigger. But Italy is a heavyweight, and that is where people see the risk here. And the cost of borrowing, because of the politics of the new populist government in Rome, has already risen for Italy. It's skyrocketed, basically, when plans became known for the kind of policies that we're seeing now. And the fear is, of course, that if the government doesn't scale back at some point soon, then the cost will continue rising, and even the ECB might not be able to contain market dissatisfaction, nervousness, uncertainty over Italy, and this spread to the rest of the Eurozone. That's the main risk that people see. And a lot of people are very worried and make Italy out as one of the potential risk factors for a new crisis when and if one crisis should emerge and take the market down.
But if the market is still getting set for the big stories around the third quarter earnings, now we have Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, two of the big banks also on Wall Street. What are the highlights from these two banks? We've seen about three other banks last week. How is the market reacting to the new numbers from JP and Goldman?
Very positively. It's all in all encouraging news. The share of Morgan Stanley is going up by 2.5% today before the bell on Wall Street. It's gone down 17% this year over doubts that the business model is going in the right direction. But these numbers from the third quarter from Morgan Stanley are obviously very encouraging to investors, especially equity trading is looking up 7% higher. Bond trading is also going up a little, much better than Goldman's bond trading, but Goldman is really taking the equities up. So the Goldman profit is much higher than the Morgan Stanley profit. All in all, encouraging news in a difficult environment for these two heavy hitters from the U.S. investment bank scene.
So let's finish off in Germany, where another automaker, Audi, the luxury car maker, is set to pay, or has been asked to pay 800 million euros levy by the prosecutors in Germany in connection with diesel deception. Tell us more about this fine, and what does it, will it dent Audi's numbers?
Yes, 800 million euros is a lot of money, and it will surely hit the company performance, but it's not likely to take Audi or its parent company, Volkswagen, down, and they will have already made precautions, put money back to pay for something like this. But even without putting money back, 800 million is a lot to you and me, but to Volkswagen, with billions and billions in profits, despite all the Dieselgate stories, it's still selling cars in the millions, world #1 car maker. The profits are there and the cash flow is there as well. That's important, lots of liquidity. So Volkswagen can weather the storm. And believe it or not, Bosen, because a positive analyst comment in a different context on VW, the VW share, the parent of Audi, is actually one of the leaders in today's German market.
Oh, I remember Audi is linked to VW at the apron, as it were. Okay, I understand. I got that. Thank you. Tomorrow's another day. Ulrich Batz for us at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Thank you very much.